Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Bulan Shay. Up next on the GM, a look back on the game, the preseason, and the offseason. Let's talk. So, the preseason has now, concluded, and game three of the preseason was much like game two, was much like game one, kind of a rinse and repeat. And I don't know about you guys, but it's a concern of mine. And it's something that I shared all the way back in March, in April, in May, and then a little bit at the 1st of June. And then I went silent until this point. And that concern is that the Baltimore Ravens have not made their vulnerabilities better. They haven't improved what they were deficient at. It looks as if they've only made things worse from an organizational standpoint, from a general manager and head coach standpoint. You see, when you look at the additions to this team, when you look at the departures of this team, and when you look at the three games that we just watched in the preseason, one thing is clear. The trenches don't look as effective. I won't say it's good. I won't say it's great. I'm just going to say as effective. See, when you look at the offensive line, the line that is supposed to protect Lamar Jackson, you hit reset at the interior, left guard, right guard, and you also hit reset at right tackle. A youth movement, people would call it. Okay? And one thing has been clear. This offensive line is not getting any push. With the exception of Ronnie Stanley not playing in the preseason, this is the offensive line we're going to trot out, or some combination of these parts. When you look at the preseason, if you take all three games and total them and tally them up, the Baltimore Ravens averaged less than 3 yards per carry. And that's with major pieces of this offensive line playing in this preseason. We understand Tyler Lindenbaum didn't play, and we understand that Ronnie Stanley didn't play, but we've seen a lot of who would play left guard, Voorhees. We've seen a lot of who could play right guard for Lele or Cleveland, and we've seen a lot of Roger Rosengard. And there was a lot of hype around Voorhees early on in this offseason. But I don't know about you guys, but he has left me feeling not confident in him. There was some talk that Ben Cleveland would certainly get the chance to play right guard, and this was his season to step up and show what he can do. But he hasn't done that yet. And then Roger Rosengarten, he started off playing with the second teamers, but he has definitely emerged as the right guard of the future for this team. But he has been less than advertised as well. All of these guys have shown some flashes, but it's been more times than not that we have not seen any effectiveness from this offensive line, specifically in the run game. And see, the problem is that you go out and you get a Derrick Henry and you reset the offensive line with guys who are not proven in this league. And I know Derrick Henry is great, which is some of the conversation that Derrick Henry didn't play in the preseason. So, he'll improve this run game, not if they're not open holes. I don't care how great Derrick Henry is. If there's not open holes, it's not going to matter. And the unfortunate part is we're at a point in the off season. Basically, you can say we're now in the regular season. We're at a point where there's not going to be anybody that's going to come in and make a credible contribution unless some veteran gets cut and we're able to scoop him up after Tuesday. Because if we don't make any additions, this is our offensive line for the most part. And I'm not confident. Even if you were to add Ronnie Stanley, even if you were to add Tyler Lindenbaum, I'm still not confident. The other three starters haven't shown anything. And it doesn't matter who you put in, other than Patrick McCarry. None of these guys have proven anything in this league. And a big question is, will Tyler Lindenbaum be available going into this regular season with that neck injury? But if we jump to the other side of the ball and look at the trenches, they've been less than stellar as well. They've been getting ran through and pushed around the entire preseason. Granted, there was no Michael Pierce and there was no Justin Metabike. But the guys who did play, the guys who were in the lineup, these are going to be players who are going to have major rotational roles. Roger Washington was out there. Travis Jones played. Brent Urban played, right? And the sad thing is there was nobody behind those three guys, Washington, um, Jones, and Urban, who pushed them at all. We didn't see no UDFA at the interior line. We didn't hear of anybody really pushing them, making a name for themselves. And so some of the guys who are going to be in rotation were getting, dealt with. And so it doesn't make me feel more confident. So what that means is the $100 million Justin Meta BK is going to have to be what they paid him to be. Now he's a dog, but will the money expose what he really is or validate what he really is, that being Justin Meta BK? And one more position I want to hit. That's the outside linebacker position. This is also what I believe to be one of the weaker groups on this team. So weak that an undrafted rookie in Joe Evans has probably been the best outside linebacker in preseason. And so when it comes to my last video, when I said I'm not sure if the Baltimore Ravens are more talented, less talented, or equally as talented, I'm changing my position. This team right now, based on what we've saw in 3 exhibition games basically, and actually you can call it 4 exhibition games when you count the Green Bay Packers practice from Thursday. This team is less talented than last year. And maybe it's because they're young, maybe because they haven't really broke ground yet on their NFL career, but they're less talented. You see, Saturday was an opportunity to undo, reverse what was put into the Ravens fan base mind from Thursday's practice. A practice where it was said that the defensive line of the Green Bay Packers were dominating the Baltimore Ravens offensive line, where the Baltimore Ravens couldn't get any push. It was the exact same. They dominated them on Thursday, and they turned around and did it in live game action on Saturday. So I don't know about you guys, but I do have some concerns. So let's revisit our roster predictions. All right, when we take a look at the roster, there's no conversation to be had at the quarterback position. We have Lamar Jackson and Josh Johnson. When we jump to the running back room, this is where the shakeup begins. We got Derrick Henry Justice Hill, and with Owen Wright having a broken foot, he will definitely miss the start of this season. I've heard some predictions that his injury will take about 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm saying that he's going to miss this entire season, unfortunately, for Owen Wright. Don't give me Rashawn Ali, who's done absolutely nothing. There's no reason to think that he's going to provide anything in a crucial season at this point with no impact in the offseason. I believe the Baltimore Ravens have to go out and sign some guy who gets released in the free agency cut down, some young guy with some talent who has an ability to run between the tackles and some speed to get outside. Don't have an idea who that is, but please don't bring me Dalvin Cook, Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray. Don't bring me any of those guys, right? We got a veteran workhorse in Derrick Henry, and we have a nice compliment in Justice Hill. Bring me somebody with some young talent who has proven something in this league. When we jump to the fullback room, tight end room, that's pretty established. No questions there. Ricard, then Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kolar. When we jump to the wide receiver room, there's a little more shakeup there. I believe that here are the locks: Zay, Bateman, Aguilar. I think Talon Wallace and his performance in the preseason has leapfrogged Devontae Walker into that fourth spot, moving Devontae Walker to the fifth wide receiver. And I know that there's been a lot of talk that Deontay Hardy gets that sixth receiver spot simply because he can return kicks. But for me, this is a lackluster wide receiver room. And with a guy who only has a specialty of returning kicks, he adds no wide receiver value. I think that the Baltimore Ravens have to press pause for that sixth wide receiver spot and look and see who is available post August 27th. I don't think the Ravens should be in a hurry to fill that sixth spot. Wait, see who's available, and then proceed with a sixth wide receiver. When we jump to the offensive line, more shakeup. I think the five guys on the screen are set: Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum, Falele, or Cleveland, which you'll see on the next slide, and then Roger Rosengarten. I think Patrick McCarry is the only other guy that I say is a lock. Um, you will see Josh Jones with an underline. That's because I think his roster spot is in question. He has not performed well this offseason. He has not given the fan base anything to be excited about as far as this offensive line depth. And I think that the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to be willing to wait and see who's available in the August 27th cut down and maybe pursue somebody who gets released. This offensive line is not one that has me being confident at this point. When you jump to the defensive side of the ball, well, that leaves 20 players right now on the offensive side of the ball. When you jump to the defense side of the ball, the guys in the trenches that I had from my previous video are still the same guys. You got Meta BK, Michael Pierce, Broderick Washington, Travis Jones, and Brent Urban. When you jump to the outside linebacker position, little bit of change there. I added a sixth edge rusher. I have Odafe Owe. I have, of course, Ajabo, Tavius Robinson, Van Noy, Adisa Isaac, and then I added Joe Evans, who has been the only young bright spot other than Malik Ham, who of course went down. But I added Joe Evans to this list, making a sixth edge rusher. When we take a look at the inside linebacker position, I have four guys there. I have Chris Boyd not on this roster at this point. But I do have, of course, Roquan. I have Trent Simpson, Malik Harrison, and Josh Ross, who I thought has played an improved brand of linebacker over the course of this preseason, and a guy who stuck around the Baltimore Ravens for the last several years, and he can play special teams. So I took Ross and left Chris Boyd out. Excuse me. When we jump to the cornerback room, there is some change in this room. Of course, you got Brandon Stevens, Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, TJ Tampa, all locks. I have originally I had Jalen Armour Davis, Pepe Williams, and Arthur Millette. Both of these guys are underlined because I think Arthur Millette absolutely starts on the PUP list, which opens up a spot from my original list. And I think Pepe Williams has played himself off of this roster. Moving Ardarius Washington to the cornerback position from the safety position from my original list. So that still gives us a starting nickel corner and a guy who can double as a safety if he needed to. So I got Pepe Williams out and Ardarius Washington replacing him in the cornerback room. That still gives us 6 cornerbacks. When we jump to the safety room, I now have I still have 4 safeties. I have, of course, Hamilton, Williams, Eddie Jackson, and I added Bo Braid, who played very well yesterday with a leaky at best front. Bo Braid came up big, making tackles, playing downhill, and I think he played himself onto this roster as he has been accelerating and making a surge over the last couple of weeks. So Bo Braid replaces Ardarius Washington at safety. Ardarius Washington moves to corner, replaces Pepe Williams. That's 26 players on the defense, and that brings us to a total of 49 players. And I still have 4 open spots with injuries and all of those things considered. I think that those open spots make room for hopefuls like maybe a Dayton Wade or a Anthony Miller, 2 guys we've seen perform in preseason. And then I think also it makes room with the 4 open spots. I think it makes room for signing at least 1 running back and 2 offensive linemen. So this breaks down to it's either Dayton Wade or Anthony Miller or a better player who gets released August 27th. Okay, so you get 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, and 2 offensive linemen. That's why I loaded up on the defense with young talent and left these offensive positions open, all areas where there is need. There is need for some talent at wide receiver, especially late on that depth chart. There is need for talent at offensive line, and then there's also need for a 3rd running back. Before we go, let me take care of the most important business of this entire video. I want to give special condolences to Joe D's family and all of his loved ones, all of his friends, and anybody else who he touched during his 70 years of living. Don't know much about Joe D other than he was a great offensive line coach, but everything I'm hearing, he was a better man than he was a coach. And so in this time of loss, my hope is that people will find, his family will find God's peace in their time of need. I'm out.